It is Hawks21 back with part 2 of my Conqueror Jacek series. This is going to be the second video I put out in a series of 3. The first video, if you missed that, you should go check it out. It was just my general thoughts and reaction to Jacek being put out. Its stats, which here's a little reminder, we have scattershot, piercing, and the big +2 speed. So just some thoughts on general Jacek. How much I really liked this card, and I think this set of abilities is pretty brilliant for the new players to counter some of the most OP summoners in the game right now. If you want to hear me talking about that, go check out the first video. Here in part 2, I'm going to talk about my top 5 somewhat under the radar cards that aren't being discussed enough when it comes to Conqueror Jacek and how they're going to benefit. So in part 1, we talked about sort of the blast monsters, the big tanks, anything with swiftness or slow. You know, kind of the obvious ones that, you know, you've probably seen multiple YouTube videos about, everyone tweeting about, people talking about in the Discord. I want to talk about 5 that aren't getting as much attention. Some of them are certainly being discussed, you know, but I think they're going a little bit under the radar. But before we get into all that, I am Hawks21. I make Splinterlands content almost every single day. If you are just learning about the game or already play it and love playing it, and you're new here, it would be awesome if you could like and subscribe. We're building a really fun Splinterlands community here, both on YouTube and then also my Twitter, which is right here, Hawks21 Gaming. Come get involved. This is an amazing game, and I will think you like it or you'll love it just as much as I do. Okay, let's head over to the peak monsters. Here we are with neutral, fire, modern. Again, I'm only talking modern. My channel covers modern summoners, not summoners, modern cards. So let's get into it. First, we have 2 honorable mentions. First honorable mention is the Molten Ash Golem, for a couple reasons. The first obvious one, Molten Ash Golem benefits from piercing. Molten Ash Golem benefits from the speed. Right now, this card is very, very playable in reverse speed rule sets, which is a great time to play fire. And really the only time I do play fire is reverse speed rule sets, which is part of the reason why Jacek is so great. That +2 speed is going to make, you know, a lot of fire strategies more viable in normal rule sets where the speed is how it's supposed to be. Anyways, so we have the speed boost, which helps, the piercing that helps, and the other thing that you're going to hear me talk about a lot is you're going to see a lot of Jacek versus Jacek matchups, at least early on. I don't know about you, but right now I see a ton of Grandmaster Wraith in Modern. I play in Modern right now, I don't play in Wild. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Newer players are going to be playing in Modern. A lot of the newer players don't have the untamed legendary summoners, and Grandmaster Wraith is the most powerful summoner they have had up until this point. So you see a ton of Grandmaster Wraith. Whenever I play Grandmaster Wraith, there's a really good chance I have a Grandmaster Wraith versus Grandmaster Wraith battle. I think a similar thing's going to happen here with Jacek. Jacek's really powerful with the speed. You know, it has a chance to do just a ton of damage, which I talked about in the first video, how it just gives new players a chance, which I think is really, really, really important. But when you're going to play Jacek, you're going to want backline monsters that have a lot of health. And that's what the Molten Ash Golem has. He has great abilities, right? Weaken and Demoralize are fantastic. I love both of these. Weaken's awesome. You know, every monster -1 health. That's almost like 6 damage spread across the board. I know that goes away when he gets eliminated, but until then, that can be the difference, specifically with the piercing, between getting rid of an opponent and not. And also the Demoralize at the highest level is great. So this has a lot of like minor synergies, and I think this gets a boost, and it makes my honorable mention because it honestly might have gone down in price since the summer's come out. I've used this time to max him out. I didn't have him maxed out ahead of time. Or maybe I might be like 5 or 6 away. You know, maybe I should pick this one up, but I'll look at that after the video. but I'm close to maxing this one out now. I plan on maxing it out. I think it gets a minor bump, but just honorable mention. My second honorable mention, and part of this is because I think previously this card was completely unplayable. I don't think I've ever played it, except maybe early on to test it out with some Earthquake battles. I don't know if I've ever gone against it. You know, it's not bad on the surface. It's just its mana cost is way too high for what the card brings. And that is the Gargoyle Devil. To be clear, it's just an honorable mention, and it's something I wanted to mention because it gets a boost. And it's still 7 mana, which is still way too high for what this card brings. But some things about this summoner make it a little more interesting. It already has the shield. It has flying. It has a shield at every level. It has flying at every level. It has close range at every level. So that's nice. You toss it in the back line. You know, if you're playing Jacek, right? Having the shield is nice. Like, the piercing still has to actually go through the shield, so having shield still matters. Has the flying, then you add on the +2 speed, so now it's 5 speed at most levels, except for the first level. So you have 5 speed for any other boosts. Flying makes it a little difficult to hit. You could put it as sort of a sneak protector in the back, because it has the shield, it's going to be fast, has flying, so it's elusive. The combo of Death Blow, right, which it has close range, so that's a good combination with Death Blow. But if you play this as a little sneak protector in the back, it makes it much more likely Death Blow is going to come into play, which if you don't know, because it's not that common of an ability, you get 2x damage if your opponent's monster is the only one left on their team. This was implemented sort of as a llama last stand counter. But with the piercing now, the close range, and some additional survivability with the speed, and then it's also gets some utility as a sneak protector. Now it's a little more elusive. I could see situations where it would have to be a lot of mana, right? I'm talking, you know, 40 and up at least, probably maybe even 50 and up to, you know, to let myself play this card for 7 mana. But I just wanted to point out that for those just getting started, right, who maybe can't afford or aren't comfortable putting tons of money in yet, I think this card goes from borderline completely unplayable to having some solid use. And I think Jacek pulls that out with the piercing, the additional speed, the scatter shot, obviously this card will take advantage of. And then it becomes even a better sneak protector with the additional speed. So, yeah. Again, I'm not going to be playing this card a ton. That's not what I'm saying. It was just something I was looking at, and I was like, this card goes from 0 to, you know, some level of playability, specifically if you're just building out your deck and you're looking for a card that can do some damage. Okay, let's get into the actual top 5. So, coming in at number 5, this card has been discussed, for sure. It's so cheap that I wanted to point it out, and it's on the screen right now. It is the Radiated Brute. So this card historically has not gotten a lot of love. If you look at it here, right, so it ends up at the highest levels, 446. 446. It has almost a carbon copy, the Magma Troll in Untamed. 445, the biggest difference is Affliction. This is 4 mana, so it's playable in Little League, which gives it an extra boost. So you basically trade off Affliction for Enrage. And I think that's why this ended up as a 5 mana as opposed to a 4 mana. If you could play this card in Little League with the Enrage, people would love it way more. It's just once you get out of that Little League rule set and you can play any card you want, this card doesn't quite bring enough to the table to be that interesting as a standalone. But now, give this thing piercing, right? Get it enraged in gold and higher. A lot of this, I would say, is gold and higher. Although even right here, right, you give it piercing with the additional speed, comes a little more useful. But You do the +2 speed here, talking about 5 or 6 at the highest level. Get it enraged. Now it's 8 or 9 speed. Here you're talking 6 damage. Here you're talking 5 damage with piercing. So this can become a little useful like bowling ball to sit in the reach position. Think about like a poison match. You could toss the Forgotten One up front that doesn't take poison damage. Put Radiated Brute in the second position. Let it get enraged. And then have a couple of turns at least. You know, it has okay health. Where it's going to be really fast. Hit like a truck. And then also be enraged. So with the piercing as well, right? So you're talking 6 damage that will cut through armor. You know, this one's being talked about. It's not, you know, this is nothing new or surprising. It makes sense that this one has gained value given the speed and the piercing. It's just, you know, it's so cheap. It's incredibly cheap at 3 cents. That I wanted to point it out. You know, newer players, this is a card you might be able to take advantage of. Number 4. This one's a kind of weird one. He was brought up in the last one. That's Venator Kinjo. And I'm going to explain why. I'm not going to get fully into it. I think this card in particular gets some value. But I'm going to talk about 2 strategies in part 3, which is going to cover sort of countering this strategy or like how you can take advantage of your opponent playing Jacek. But Venator as a whole is going to be really important into going up against Jacek. Because what Jacek brings is, again, pun intended, chaos. You don't know where your opponent's going to fire. And that makes it difficult for you to like plan out your lineups and do what you want to do. What makes Venator, and you're going to see a lot of blast damage with Jacek. Remember, we talked about that in part 1. The blast monsters on fire are going to get huge boosts because of the scatter shot, that they can just fire it into the back line and completely ignore taunt monsters or any sort of funneling of damage you're trying to present. What makes Venator so great is the camouflage reflection shield combination that he actually gets at level 1. So I think his importance with this card, we talked about him from a slow perspective, and you know, I have him at level 4, the highest for Diamond and Champion. So I'm going to also be able to take advantage of the slow. But what I'm talking about in this video and why he comes in at number 4 is this combination, the Reflection Shield Camouflage. And he gets both of them right away at bronze. So this is going to be playable at the lowest levels. What this is going to allow you to do is segment damage. So camouflage cannot be hit directly by scattershot. Now, camouflage monsters can be hit by blast damage. So these other monsters with camouflage, I think there's one more right here, Dr. Blight, Scavel Harling, these all have different levels. I think these both get them at level 1 too. Yeah. But these monsters can be hit, and neither of them have high health, can be hit with blast damage. Because Venator has Reflection Shield, he cannot. So you still won't be able to completely tunnel the damage just with him. Again, there's something you could run using camouflage that we'll talk about in part 3. But for now, we're just talking about Venator. I'm going to be putting Venator in either the 3rd or the 4th position. Normally you hug him right next to a tank when you're expecting blast. But I think going against Jacek, he's better in the 3rd or the 4th. So that's basically going to create 2 almost equally sized segments. Let's say you put him in the 3rd position and you're able to play 6 monsters. It gets better the less monsters you play, actually. Because if you take the example of playing 3 monsters, right, you have your tank, Venator, and then another card, blast damage isn't going to matter, right? Because it can only hit the 1st or the 3rd card, the scatter shot, and Venator is going to be sitting between them, and Venator can't take blast. So if you're expecting sort of a blast play, and it's a lowish mana with Jacek, you know, he's 7 mana, so there's only like so low you can get and be able to play a combination like that. But hypothetically, he'd only be able to fire at the tank or the back line, and blast wouldn't do any damage. So now let's expand it. you're talking about, let's say you play 6 monsters, right? You have him in the 3rd position, let's say. That's going to create 2 segments. Your tank, your 2nd position monster, and then your back 3 monsters in positions 4, 5, and 6. There is only one position that you're exposed at from Scattershot Blast that could hit the maximum 3 monsters, and that's position number 5. So let's take the first segment, positions 1 and 2. If it hits position 1, your tank, that can only do blast damage to position 2, as is. That's normal. If it hits position 2, normally you'd be able to do damage to position 1 and position 3 with blast. But having the Venator here in position 3 means Venator can't take blast, and sort of stops that cycle and spiraling of your entire back line taking blast damage. Can't hit space 3 because that's where the Venator is. Let's say it hits space 4, same thing as space 2. It can hit position 5, but it can't hit the Venator in position 3. If it hits position 6, that can hit position 5 only, as is normal. The one exposure point you have is position 5, in which case position 6 and position 4 will take damage. So that severely limits your sort of susceptibility to just getting wiped out by Scattershot Blast. So I think he's going to be a very, very important card, just as a standalone in that instance that I explained, but also as part of a larger strategy, that little teaser we will get to in part 3. All right, speaking of part 3, here is number 3 on sort of underestimated boosts. This one's been talked about a lot, actually, but I think it's still even underhyped. Its price barely moved. It went up a little bit. 10 Yi Striker. So he's been discussed a lot in terms of the piercing, right? He does a significant amount of damage. Silver, it gets up to 3. Silver is 3. Gold is when you see 4, and then the highest level you get 5. And that's obviously amazing, right? If you can do big damage to the back line with piercing, that's great. What I think is very underrated about this card, specifically at the highest levels, but once it gets dodge, is now this becomes one of those situations where he benefits from every single part, except for the Scattershot, of Jacek. So the 2 speed makes it 5 here once it gets the dodge. It's going to be incredibly hard to hit, right? You have that in the back line, and you have a great sneak protector. It gets even better here at the highest levels when you have a 4 speed 7 with backfire, right? So now we're talking 6 speed with dodge, which is a 25% chance of evading melee or ranged, with backfire. So while he's dodging, he'll be doing damage back. Then, not to mention, just an added bonus, the piercing damage, right? That's what most people have been focused on, but I like the speed. So if you combine him with Jacek at the highest level once he gets backfire, but even dodge, with, Countess or Flame Monkey or any of the slows that we discussed, and all of a sudden this guy's really, really, really difficult to hit. So I think he receives a huge boost from a speed sneak protector point of view. And the other thing is, he has decent health. So back to that thing again, if you get Jacek versus Jacek, you want your back line to have health. 6 and 7 health is not bad, specifically for someone who's going to be doing a lot of damage. A lot of sneak monsters don't have this level of health. So, his card pushed up a little bit, but I was expecting this card to fly. He was the first one I came in, and I only had him at a level 6, because again, I didn't play fire except for reverse speed. And I had sort of just slowly accumulated. I didn't sell them when I would get them in packs, and I would just combine them slowly. But he wasn't a card I really paid attention to, because I was like, well, he would benefit from more speed, given the backfire, the sneak protect, the dodge. And that's just not how fire plays right now. It's slow, or you use ranged Jotun. But then when I saw the speed, he was the first guy I thought of, and I was expecting this card to fly. It moved to sort of the highest of the rare in Chaos. I actually don't know where he is, but this is kind of where he was before. And I was just a little surprised. I thought he was going to move a lot higher. People are definitely talking about him, but I think it's mostly for the piercing, and he's getting underestimated what this 2 speed is going to do for him, both at silver and then also at the highest level once you get to backfire. So I'm very excited for the 10U striker. I think he gets a huge bump, and that's why he comes in at number 3. So to this point, I would say we had, number 5 and number 3, so the 10U striker and then number 5, where is he? Radiated Brute, have kind of been talked about, but I just think they're a little bit underhyped. Number 2 and number 1 specifically, I think is going to be, I haven't seen this card mentioned once. It is after the 10U striker. It is the second card I leveled up, so I'm excited to share him, and I want people to either understand it or completely disagree with me, so I can get into arguments with you guys in the comments. But let's start with number 2. And part of the reason why number 2 is so great is because I already thought this card was severely undervalued. He actually got a little bit of a bump, so I think some people noticed, but he comes from a point where I was like, this card is super cheap. I love him. I play him all the time. I don't know why other people don't see it. That's Ifrit Elder. He's another situation where I think he benefits from basically everything about Jacek. So he is the only monster, I believe, that has Last Stand naturally at the lowest level. That doesn't require the llama strategy. So that's amazing, right? You put him in the last spot. He has decent speed across the board, 3 and 4. He always has high health, between 8 and 10. So you have to put him in the last position normally because you want to take advantage of Last Stand, at least when you're not expecting sneak. And if you do get surprised by a sneak play, he has a bit of speed and he has the health to defend against it, at least for a bit, right? And then when he creeps up into the front position, he gets really fast, right? So one of my favorite plays right now actually is in a low mana, think like 13 to 15 mana. I don't have the meta low mana strategy cards right now. I don't have the Death Redemption team with Thaddeus, where you just do a bunch of weakens and then use Redemption and Rust to eliminate your opponent, basically. I don't have the Earth lineup that everyone loves to run. Like, I don't have Mylor. I don't have a leveled up Failed Summoner. I don't have a leveled up Chimer Princess. I'm just missing some of those key cards. And so what I basically say instead is I'm going to run Kitty, Ifrit Elder. Give him the +2 speed. He has phase, so he can dodge everything. All of a sudden, when he's the only card I play with Kitty, he's doing 5 damage. Starts with the 6 speed. The Last Stand takes him up to 9, and then 15 health. So he's healing for 5 every single time with Kitty. Has 9 speed, does 5 damage. He is a terror to try to get through. But let's talk about Jacek now. The 6 speed is still in play, right? This card's going to be very, very fast with Jacek. Again, how many times do I have to mention this? Jacek versus Jacek, you want guys with high health in the back. He has significantly high health, specifically for 6 mana. Last Stand at every level, so he gets even faster once you get back to the final position, once he steps into the first position. The magic damage with Scatter Shot is also key. So historically, Fire's been range. It has some really good magic monsters, and that's why people have been calling for a magic summoner for so long. But in this situation, I think everyone's talking about the piercing and the range, and magic damage is still king. For example, let's look at silver, right? So 4. Let's say you have him at a level 4, has 2 magic damage. Let's also then compare him to Lava Launcher, which also gets a huge boost, right? But everyone's talking about Lava Lunge and how great he's going to be. So that's why he didn't make my list. I'm calling it a he. I mean, it's a machine. Anyways, let's look at him. Let's say you have him at level 2. So 3 damage versus 2 magic damage. The monster with Scattershot in the back has, let's say, 2 shield and 2 armor and 4 health. So with the piercing, the 3 damage from the lava launcher is going to hit the shield, go through it, and that additional damage will tick off the 1 health. So you'll be left with a monster with 3 health. The Ifrit Elder has 2 magic, so 1 less damage than the 3 magic range lava launcher. If he hits that same monster in the back, it's going to go down to 2 health. Right? So you end up in a better situation. Now again, you would have to play other magic monsters, because if another ranged monster then goes, they would have to also get through the shield. And the piercing again would help. But if you don't have void armor, playing these magic monsters with Scattershot on fire is going to be a very, very, very successful play. And then he moves into the last position, he moves into the first position, and it's going to be another situation where he has 9 speed. So he doesn't have the heal that I would get with Kitty, right? But with Jacek, he's going to have the 9 speed. So the Scattershot is great with magic, has high health to defend against Scattershots coming to the backline with Jacek. Will benefit greatly from the +2 speed. And then last thing I'll say on him, think about this. How many times have you come up against, you're in a tough fought battle going back and forth, and then Dr. Blight is the last monster left. He's scavenged up a bunch of health, and he hits your last guy poisoned, and your health slowly ticks away and you can't do anything. He is a great Dr. Blight counter, and I can say that from experience. So again, he's going to have 15 health if he hasn't taken any damage when he moves into the front. So a one-on-one with him versus a Dr. Blight, I want Ifrit Elder. I'm going to show you why. The big risk is poison damage. So at the highest level, you're going to be doing 5 damage. So even up until like 15, let's say Dr. Blight somehow scavenges up to 15. There's some resurrects or whatever. We take him at, all right, let's say it's 6 versus 6, right? He starts at 4 health. Then there's 10 monsters will go away. He'd have 15. Let's even say there was a 14. Let's even say there was a resurrect. So he got to take advantage of scavenge again. Now he has 15 health. At the highest level, that's only going to be 3 turns. And Dr. Blight has to get through 15 levels of damage, which is hard enough, right? Except given the phase and the high speed, look at this. Your big risk is you don't want to get poisoned. A little spoiler there on the actual number, but 9 speed to Dr. Blight's 1. That's an 80% miss rate. So Dr. Blight has a 10% chance of hitting you. In this strategy, you don't care about or 20% chance, sorry. In this strategy, you don't care about the affliction. When I'm using Kitty with him, I care about it because the heal is a huge part of it. But here, there's no heal, so the affliction doesn't matter. The poison does. Every time you get hit, it's a 50% chance that you get poisoned if that monster has poisoned. So 20% chance to hit you times 0.5, easy math, 10% chance. So there's only a 10% chance that Dr. Blight is going to hit you and also do poison. So yeah, that's number 2. I got a little passionate there. I love this card. I think he's severely underrated. He got a little bit of a tick up, but not really. And I'm very excited to use him with Jacek. I'm going to have him in the last position, I think. I'm going to put Tenyi Striker actually in the 5th position. What my thought process is going to be, if they do a big sneak play, right, I'm going to lose him, but then they'll have to get through the Tenyi Striker. I'm always going to want him in the last position to take advantage of that last stand at the end. All right. So, number 1, this is another card that I don't think I had purchased. I got 1 BCX of this card just to have it. and ever since then I sell it whenever I open it. I've had no interest in this card up until this point, but now if you're gonna go into a full sort of Jacek craziness strategy of like, all right, I'm gonna let RNG take control, let's see what happens, I think this card has become almost a must play in this situation. Before I reveal it, again, remember, when you're expecting a Jacek, you're gonna put monsters in the back line that have tons of health. What's a good way to get rid of that? I will show you. Number one is Ifrit Rising. Now, I don't think he's like the most powerful now with this card. Like, I don't think the synergy is perfect. I just think he gets the biggest boost. And I haven't seen one person talk about Ifrit Rising. Think about this. With giving this guy Scattershot, is improving his speed to 5. I guess without Scattershot, right? You don't play this card because he's slow. His health is okay, right? But for 8 mana, he doesn't really bring any other abilities. And you're kind of just waiting for him to fire every other turn. He fires at the main guy up front, who's most likely to have Void Armor, which, by the way, if the monster in the back has Void Armor, or you're going against Grandmaster Wraith, I found this out the other day, I wasn't sure. Magic with Piercing also goes through Void Armor, right? Which makes sense, and I'm glad it works that way, but I did get confirmation, so I just wanted to mention that. So, this monster then, fires at the monster in the front, which probably has Void Armor, probably has Void, maybe has Reflect. That's normally the monster that's most ready to take damage. And it's just not worth it for 8 mana for that to happen every other turn. It still fires every other turn, but now with Scattershot, it is going to go to a random direction. So every other turn, you're going to be doing 9 magic damage with decent speed to a random backline opponent. There's not that many cards in the backline that have 9 health. There just isn't. So you're going to be able to completely, basically every other turn, assuming you don't end up hitting the tank, which you might, that's part of the luck strategy, right? You're going to be able to completely wipe out one of their backline cards every other turn just from his shot. And I think that completely changes the use case for Ifrit Rising. I am totally willing to wait every other turn for him to fire if I know, more likely than not, when he fires, it's going to completely eliminate one of their cards. So if you're going to go the Jesus take the wheel Scattershot strategy, I almost think he's a must play if you have the mana. Just because he's going to be so powerful just picking on those backline monsters every other turn with massive amounts of magic damage straight to their health. Give him the piercing, so if you do come up with Void Armor or a Wraith, that doesn't really matter. That's just one extra thing he has to go through. He's number 1 because completely unusable, wasn't even going to level him up. But now, I'm very, very, very excited. I went and bought, I think 10, or I might have had him at level 2 actually, but I went and bought 8 copies right away. I'm excited for him to have the force field in the back for a little survivability, decent health. But I'm just excited for him to pick off backline monsters every other turn. So I'm going to stop it there. Just a little bit to think about. I think Ifrit Rising is amazing with this new card. I'm excited to sort of test out my theory, see if it works. But curious what you think. What do you think about my list? Again, the goal of the list was sort of under the radar boosts. I didn't want to just talk about the blast damage monsters. I didn't want to talk about Grum. Everyone's talking about those. I wanted to go to sort of like level 2 thinking and be like, what are some under the radar cards that I think get a boost? Or, in I guess some cases, like really cheap cards that get a boost that haven't really moved in price. But yeah, Ifrit Rising, really excited to try them with the recharge. Very, very, very excited. Okay, that's going to end part 2. Again, I am Hawks21. This video went pretty long, but lots to talk about with the Fire Summoner coming up. You can expect part 3. Let's see, you're going to be watching this on Monday. There is the town hall on Monday. So depending on what that announcement is, if it's something I feel like I need to make a video on, that will probably come out before part 3. But you can expect it either Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm going to stop it there. I am Hawks21. Thanks for being here. It would be awesome if you could like and subscribe. I will talk to you guys soon.